I did manage to keep on writing during those 30 years. I've published one book, three chapbooks, and I've got another book out and about trying to find a publisher. Um, I've somehow been able to maintain my poetry world and life uh, with working full time in technology. Um, it I would probably say I would like to have devoted a bit more time to the poetry, but I spend a lot of time thinking about poetry, thinking about making notes when I take walks. Um, my methodology has kind of changed through the years. I used to keep notebooks and then just kind of write when it struck me to write. Was a morning writer a lot. Now, in the last 10 years, I write on Friday nights. I write a poem a week, or I try to. So usually I get about 20 poems a year. And I set Friday aside. Everyone knows I'm writing that night. And I sit down and write a poem. And I usually spend 4 to 5 hours on it, getting it to a place where I can set it aside for a little while and then revisit it to see if it's worth keeping or not. That's worked out real well for me. It, it it just keeps me in a rhythm. And that's the way I do it. I don't keep a lot of notebooks anymore. Often I get ideas out on a walk or something, and I just remember it and use it as a prompt to work on the poem for that week. If I happen to forget it, I don't care. I sit down on Friday, think of another prompt, and get after it. An interesting thing that I did with a couple of friends. 10 years ago, we started a poetry magazine online called U City Review. It's www.ucityreview.com. Been doing it 10 years. We publish 2 issues a year, one in June and one in December. I never thought of myself as being very good at being an editor and a reader. However, I have really enjoyed doing this last 10 years. And in fact, I'm working on the June issue for 2020 right now. I have a young poet friend who's really a great poet, Raphael Maurice, and he and I are the editors. I do the HTML and lay it out, and it's just been a blast. And it's really kept me active, maybe in some of the periods in my life where I wasn't actively writing poems. But the combination of editing, seeing it, putting it out, selecting poems to publish, and looking at everyone we published through these last 10 years, I never thought we would be here. I am, quite frankly, kind of proud of it.
Okay. Do you still write poetry away from the job? I do. I'm still publishing magazines every once in a while. I have a couple manuscripts I'm working on, one of which is actually based on things that I've learned from advertising. Um, it's fun. It's fun. I love doing it. I don't know why I would ever stop. Even if I never get another thing published again in the world, I don't think I'll stop writing. How do you manage your own writing time? I used to feel like there a lot of pressure to keep a schedule. Um, I think it works for a lot of people. It's never been something that's worked for me. Um, the one thing that I do that I really find value in, and this is just me, so take this with a grain of salt, is I do what Ted Berrigan did. I collect lines. Whenever I think of a line in my head, whether I'm walking, I'm at the grocery store, whatever, I have a notes app on my phone and I write it down. And when I'm in a place where I can write, I do it. Um, but I don't know. These days I only write when I feel like I have something to say. Um, but if a schedule works for you, a schedule works for you. Um, do you stay involved with the writing community? Um, I was never really involved with the writing community. Before grad school, I was a bartender. During grad school, I tended bar, and afterwards, now I do this. I think the community is the writing community is important. I think it's a great way for people to find um, human connection, to continue to inspire them, to make their work better, to expose them to new kinds of work, new voices, all this stuff. I think the writing community can be an excellent resource for people. But it was just never something that I was really drawn to. I have a couple of friends that I met in my program that are some of the best friends I think I'll ever have. Um, I talk with them every week, and for me, that kind of connection is enough. And we occasionally help each other with writing and trade manuscripts back and forth. But I don't know. I really just like them as people. So that's my writing community.
Yes, I do still write poetry away from the job all the time. It's what I do. I mean, that's what keeps me going. And I enjoy my job, and livelihood is a very good thing. And I appreciate having a good and well paid job. But I try to get up early every morning. Um, I have flex time at my job, so this works. Usually, often I spend the first hour or two of the day writing, and it's not because I feel like it's something I have to do. It's something I want to do. And if the writing isn't going well that day, or I just don't feel like it, I try to put in some time reading. I'm reading all the time, and then if not reading, some other kind of neutral practice. There's a writer and teacher named Janine Lentine, Lentine, and she, if you look her up online, she has a whole list of neutral practices. The idea is to do something that's not exactly writing, but something that supports your writing and keeps your mind engaged in that way. Um, for me, my favorite is reading, but I do all kinds of exercise or just things like I might just sit for an hour and listen to every sound that happens outside the window. And once I start to get bored, I start to try to write down what the sounds sound like. It doesn't take any, if I'm feeling really groggy or tired, it doesn't take a super amount of energy to do that. Just listen. Another thing I do is I read something, and every word I don't understand, I look it up in the dictionary. And over the course of 10 or 12 years, the last 12 years probably of doing that, it really changes my mind, the way I think. I have a different kind of vocabulary than I would otherwise. My mind seems much more fine-grained, and actually it's something I enjoy doing. I spent almost 2 hours doing it this morning. Time with the dictionary, timewithdictionary.com. I was looking up words like melody, like where did that come from? What is a melody? I was reading some, what was the name of the poet I was reading? Fred Moten, and he was talking about plain song, one word. And I realized, I'd heard that word before, like English plain song, but I didn't know really what it meant. So I looked it up, and then, it turns out it's usually ecclesiastical music, or from the beginning of the Christian church, there was this plain song. It was just everyone singing in unison with one voice. And then that became a Gregorian chant in the medieval times. This led me to think I don't know what the word melody means. Melody was in one of the definitions. So I looked that up. Of course I know what it means. You can hum a tune, but where did the word come from? Anyway, to me, that's endlessly interesting. And I often can end up in the middle of that activity, suddenly I get an idea for a poem and I start writing. So that's how I manage my writing time. Basically, I just do it, and I do it in the morning, and I read a lot. If I don't, then I find I don't have much to write about. That part of my mind isn't activated. So that's how I do that. Anyway, that's about all I got. One last thing, if there can be a word of advice, I think it's really important to get involved with the community of writers, and some people do it very consciously. For me, it just kind of happened. And I have two friends from graduate school, and we still get together and talk about poetry or whatever we're writing. But for me, summer writing programs have been a huge help. And like generally they're 1 week long conferences. And I like to go to ones where you sign up for a workshop and you have to write a new poem every day. And there's only 3 of those that I know of. The Kenyon Summer Workshop, then the Community of Writers at Squaw Valley has a poetry week with 6 or 7 workshops. And then the Napa Valley Writers Program Summer Workshop. There may be a couple others. Those are the ones I know where you write something new every day. And I've been going to those for the last 10 years. They cost money, but some of them have, Napa has a lot of scholarship money and community housing. You have to be able to get yourself there, but after that, anyway, those are really good things. And that's where I've met a lot of my community. And then those are people I can go to AWP with, the annual AWP conference. Honestly, I've gotten to like it. And initially it's kind of horrifying because of the scale, but I find so many new writers when I go to the readings there. I really, really do love it. And then there are residencies at places like Vermont Studio Center. Those are all great things you can keep doing all of your life. And that's all I got. Thanks.